Okay, back to some SPQR. In this case, the battle is the Battle of the Great Plains. This is a C3I little separate module taking place over here on the way to Carthage. What's interesting in this one, here you have Numidians on both sides again. We did in the last one, the Argophiles Tower or whatever. And I think we may in the next one too, where we see kind of the follow-up to this battle. In this particular battle, you have Massinissa on one side and Syphax or whatever on the other. And they make a big deal out of this babe, Sophonisba, who apparently was Hasdrubal's daughter and was kind of pawned off on Syphax in order to cement ties. And then he kind of dragged his feet, perhaps spending too much time with her, and then moved after this battle, which was, I'll get into in a moment. Massinissa goes back and runs home, runs back and claims the kingdom because Syphax has been captured. And along with the kingdom, he has this hurried marriage to whatever, Sophonisba. And immediately is, Scipio comes and shows up like a day later. And he's like, hey, what's up here? No. Knowing that, whoever the king is can't marry her. Because that ties her to Carthage, or ties him to Carthage too much. Therefore, anyway, Massinissa goes back and says, this ain't gonna work. Have some poison, which she drinks apparently willingly in order to avoid, falling into Rome's hands or whatever. Anyway, the battle itself is particularly noteworthy for Scipio's completely, again, abandoning the basic Roman doctrine. In fact, he ends up spreading his force out into a Hastati line, a Priori line, not coming directly behind, and the Triari being used completely as its own little separate entity. And this is all heading towards the cohort system. And then, forming this kind of hinge maneuver and attacking on all fronts with decent units. And these are quite decent units, actually. You have almost all the units are from the first legion, which in SPQR is an elite legion. The numbers don't have anything to do with the real numbers of the legions. And the third legion is a veteran unit, which nicely they fill it in with some pretty good quality units. Approximately the same value as the elite legion. So you've got very, very good quality stuff here. In fact, it looks like elite quality here, although nah, they've got one less. Okay. Anyway, this is about units taking on what's actually a fairly fragile Carthaginian force here. The Carthaginians have a little bit of cav, and the actual numbers here aren't really known well. They have a big quantity of Carthaginian levies, some Iberian mercenaries here. These are Numidian heavies actually, but I don't have the counters for them because they came in the magazine. Likewise, I don't have counters for these Numidian levies. I'm using Arabs. I think the number is probably the same in both these cases to what I want, so that's fine. Can't be sure, but what the heck. What's nice here is they all have 5 movement. Of course, when we get to the Iberians, they don't, so I kind of had a question, well, should the Numidian heavies be just 4 movement units? I chose to make them 5 movement units because I think the Numidians tended to value mobility no matter what. We have that usual little line of skirmishers facing the Velites, who are a little more potent, of course, and that's really all we have here. Now, what's kind of interesting, there's this whole sexism thing going on over on Board Game Geek right now. And this is sort of the most sexist of all the SPQR scenarios here. And, you know, honestly, it actually does point to exactly the kind of thing that would disturb the people who are complaining about it. And I understand why. The handling and discussion here, and I don't know who actually wrote this, if this is by Herman and Berg. It's by Berg, which is fitting. I can imagine him being very much this kind of person. And I think he'd be fun to get along with because of it. But I can see it completely going against the others. So they talk about here, we provided a counter for the lovely Sophonisba, who was actually not actually present at the battle, but was an inspiration to several of the participants. We suggest that players looking for a little English in their wristage rub her counter for luck on key die rolls. Sophonisba, it appears, was used to having her counter rubbed. You know, I mean, and that kind of little quips and everything are very common, not just to Berg, but in a lot of these the war games of an older period. And you know, honestly, I think it's overblowing things to go against that. But I wanted to point out, you know, this is at the core of our hobby, sort of this kind of whatever this is. If it's wrong, well, then that wrongness goes pretty deep in our hobby, and that, you know, this stuff gets published. And SPQR is not all that old, you know, I mean, we're talking from the 90s here, not from the 70s. On the other hand, if it's not wrong, well, whatever, you know, I mean, however you want to look at it, because tastes change throughout time. Anyway, I've spent enough time on that, but it just kind of struck me as somewhat ironic, because I had this set up before this conversation started, and you know, I'm just running into this at this point. It's just humorous. Alright, onward. Let's replace my misuse of the word ironic there. As I shut off the light, I realized coincidental. It's strange how ironic has come into our language to be misused in such a way, and that it, I mean, obviously, look, it's going to affect a lot of people, and I shouldn't be too shocked that it affects my speech. I'm no great paragon of but I do tend to be less in tune with other people. But on the internet, you see it so many times, you make that mistake. It took me a second to catch myself. So here at the Battle of the Great Plains, taking a look, Scipio has the elite leader advantage, but I don't want to trigger it right now. I might have wanted to trigger maybe his cav, perhaps. But he's facing the Numidians there, and he doesn't have any other good choices. He could send the legions out in front of his velites, but he wants to use the velites to try to clear the slingers out of the way. I'm not sure that's a great idea, but it seems like at least the intention there. So he's at this point where, well, this is his next best choice, and he can't quite reach the velites. He's not within 2. He could do 2 line commands, but he doesn't want to do what is there, so he's going to hold off. And now I have to see who actually gets to go. I'll do that with an odd even, because the Carthaginians have a 2-point leader. And the Romans are going to go first. I get to move the velites forward. Take care of that. This is actually the first time I've seen maybe the situation which allowed for this. But you see, the slingers ran around the back of the velite. There weren't many velite on the line. So I was able to swamp around them and shoot at them from behind. No big advantage to that. They did, I think, a grand total of 1 tactical quality hit there. But it gets them out of the way and lets the heavier troops face the velites, get rid of them, and then I still have the slingers in front that I can reposition maybe and face the Roman line in better order. That's kind of an interesting situation. The velites may be charged forward too fast. I just wanted to get them out of the way so I could start moving forward with my main forces. There's a few interesting things to note in this battle. To begin with, I used Socrates, who's actually under the command of Syphax, or Sysfax, or whatever. He's not a regular Carthaginian. Now, that means he can only command Numidians, which I think takes me to here. Now, the way the line commands are set up for this sucker, there's very few things that you can pair together. The only thing is Numidian cavalry and light infantry could have been paired together. Well, Sisyphex can do that on his own, so he can command this line. So instead of sending a line, I sent 3 units forward, which is this command group, to hit the Velites, and they took some missile hits, and then broke. 2 of them broke without even fighting. The 3rd one was broken in the battle. There's medium infantry is not particularly good against light infantry. It rolls on the 8 table, size raised it to a 9, but the quality of these troops was low enough that they just turned and fled upon impact. Well, they got a continuation, and because I don't want them to unroute those units, Massinissa tries to trump in. He fails. So now we get to make some quick some quick rally checks on them. And those checks did not go all well. We've got 3 dead units now. On top of that, we've got a die roll of doom effect. So I rolled a 9 on the final continuation. Let's see what comes up from that. A 1. That's going to be a reactivation for the Romans. There's only one thing they can reactivate, and that's these Velites. Now, they're already tired. I'll probably just try to recover them. Although I may make some attacks, we'll see. Well, with those slingers out front, nothing to support them, it's getting down and dirty really fast with the Hastati just charging forward. Okay, I can't remember what they're called. The P guys, the Principes, are quickly converting into a line to head this way and take up a position. This is the historical, sliding to extend the line, and then we're going to see the Triari fly up to try to take this position, but this guy couldn't get the momentum or the line command for that matter. Remember, you get a free line command on your first turn of the game, so he was able to command these. Scipio's not going to be able to do that, though, which is something to keep in mind. Of course, he probably has enough activations he can get that line moving even without the line command being there. Alright, well, we're seeing the battle develop more towards this side than this side. Now that's okay, because this is where all the really weak, the Carthaginian levies are. They're probably the worst troops on the board. Now we're back on a Carthaginian activation. We have Laelus. He's the only Roman 4 couple here. And then we have the 6 coming up against the 5s. So Scipio will be going last, of course. Well, given Massinissa's inaction being promised by his failure to trump, Hanno came forward and actually pushed some of his troops further to get a flank shot. Great. Well, as soon as he tried that, Scipio trumped in and failed. So he managed to get that off. It didn't do much. The Numidians are quite hardy with that big 8 tactical quality. But now we go over to the Roman cav. We see Laelus move up just to kind of provide a screen and a protection for the Hastati line. But up here we see the medium infantry came forward, and some of them are just, outflanking the Roman front. Now, if the Romans can get something in the way, that's good and fine. If they can't, there's kind of a danger to the line there, so those Numidians may have to drive those off. But when they hit the Velite line, again they melted, because when it comes down to it, the Carthaginian troops are just such crap right now. And the end of the battle line, what happened? Sisyphex sent his Numidians up head to head right against the Roman cav. This is something Kev convinced me to do in general, because if you want to push things fast, the Numidians are better. It doesn't have the finesse and elegance of trying to get around. In the particular case where I was told to do it, hey, go on with it. There was definitely an edge of the map type situation where the terrain was such that the Numidians couldn't get an outflank. Here they could have, but I'm convinced enough of their power that I'm willing to just slam into the Romans, try to break them, because I feel like opening up the flank at this moment before Scipio can deploy, and he's been slowed down by his failed trump attempts and the like. I feel like the Carthaginians' only real chance is to break somewhere on the Roman line and get an outflank early before the Romans can kind of extend their lines in both directions. So what do we have for points at the end of this? Oh, I forgot to mention, Hasdrubal threw the heavies into the line, and then those actually were able to break most of the velites. But now he's got kind of this tired line of heavies. Great, he managed to rally them somewhat. They're in a little better shape, but they are not happy if those legionaries come slamming into them. Remember, whoever gets the first strike in has the advantage. That advantage being big in favor of the legionaries. In favor of the heavies, it's you don't have a disadvantage facing those better troops. What do we got for points here? We're looking at 15, 19, 20, 21 to 6. And what are our route levels? 110 for Rome, 90 for Carthage, Numidia. So the Carthaginians have taken a big hit already. This one's going up. I'm going to score the points and flip things over.